Hey everybody, JK here from Animator Island. Welcome to today's live stream. We've got a little bit, probably of a shorter one today, but I wanted to sit for a minute and talk with everybody about analyzing character design. So, short version of the story is this morning I got up extra early and decided I would do some Princess Daisy character fan art. Everybody in the chat saying hello. Everybody in the chat. Um, so I was going to do some Princess Daisy fan art, and so I pulled some reference for Princess Daisy, and I started doing some art based on that. And what I came to realize was that well, a number of things that we'll talk about when we pull up the reference, but with character design, changing little bits and pieces here and there will sometimes either cause it to not be that character anymore, or it will enhance what was already there about the character and make it more cohesive. So today I wanted to take a look at that, and that way we can all kind of evaluate how you approach this sort of thing. Before we dive into that, I do want to say one quick thing about fan art, which I've said before, and it's not necessarily very popular, but I'm going to say it again anyway. Um, Please don't sell fan art. It's not your intellectual property. It doesn't belong to you. And I understand that people justify it 7 ways to Sunday. But if you want to do fan art for fun or practice, by all means, go ahead, knock yourself out, enjoy the process. It can be a lot of fun, but don't then take it and sell it because it just doesn't belong to you. It's somebody else's work. Somebody else put in the time to design that character. Somebody put in the time to make that character popular. And whether it's a giant corporation or an indie developer, doesn't really matter. Just don't sell fan art. Okay, I will leave it at that. In the meantime, we're going to pop open some fan art for fun of Princess Daisy, and then we'll continue on from there. Let me fire up the iPad. All right, here we go. So this is the Princess Daisy fan art that I did this morning. It's a very rough, well, it's not very rough. I did a couple passes and tried to refine it a little bit more, but it's still in a rough state. I have not tied it down yet. I've certainly not inked it or colored it yet, but this is kind of the state that it's in currently. And so when I mentioned that I was gathering some reference for this character when I was sitting down to do the drawing. And to the left here is a bunch of art that I pulled from Pinterest. I think that's where I was this morning. And all these things were some of the better Princess Daisy art that I found. There's a myriad of Princess Daisy art out there. She's my personal favorite Mario character, so I'm happy that there's a lot of fan art out there. But this is some of the best art. Now, the one at the top left is actually from Mario Strikers, so it's official art technically, though it's probably the most dynamic Princess Daisy art that Nintendo has ever produced, because the official Nintendo stuff tends to be, for this character, tends to not be that great. Which I thought I would talk about for a minute before we jump into some of the visual things related to it. Nintendo has never seemed to figure out Princess Daisy. It seems to, the most personality and character that you see in the character tends to be done by third parties who are working with Nintendo's properties. They don't seem to give Daisy that much attention. That's changed a little bit thanks to Mario Kart, but for the most part, it's like this enigma character for them. They just have her there because they have her instead of anything else. When you have like Mario and Luigi, they have their set personalities and roles and things. Mario is that typical hero who is very stalwart, and then Luigi they've kind of made into the scaredy cat that's not always up for adventure, but resolves to get things done whenever is necessary. Even Peach has sort of grown into having a character with a little bit of personality. It's not heavy. None of the Mario universe is very heavy in terms of personality. And Bowser is developed as a character to a degree. Toad is a nice stand-in for any role because you could pretty much just make Toad do whatever, since there's multiple Toads. You have Captain Toad as one thing, and then you have Professor Toad as another thing. But with Princess Daisy, the Nintendo's never really nailed things down. So as a result of that, it can be tricky to analyze what it is about this character that makes that character, because she's just kind of all over the place officially. In terms of design, though, we can take a look at these images and we can see certain things that unify it being Princess Daisy, right? Now, costume design is probably going to be the number one. So we go down here over and over, especially in the official Nintendo stuff. Princess Daisy is in her dress. She has her flower medallion that's usually a turquoise color. She's got her flower medallion earrings. She's got her crown. She's got her yellow and orange and her brown hair. And so that's just like typical Princess Daisy. But interestingly, at these top ones, we kind of a little bit get away from that, right? Because we have these two Princess Daisies at the top that are not in her stereotypical outfit. We still have a gown on the one here. Whoops, I got rid of everything. Okay. We still have our gown on the one here, right? But it's now this this whitish color, this gray and white. So we've taken that aspect of Daisy out, but we still kept that princess element. She's still got the medallions. She's got the earrings and the crown and things like that. And then on the other side here with the Strikers one, we have kind of that orangish color that we associate with Daisy, and we still have the, you know, typical hair and the crown and the earrings, but we've removed some of the other elements, and yet she still reads as Daisy. We still know that this is Princess Daisy. It helps that she's wearing orange, but if we change that orange to something else, it would probably still read as Princess Daisy. So what I want to kind of note there is the idea that costume and accessorizing really matters in certain cases. Like in this instance, it really matters. Now, the interesting thing is, if you want to have a really, how do I put this? There are elements of this character that do not rely on costuming and accessories. But the costume and accessories almost make the character who she is. And so what I want to do is take a look at another round of art on the other side of the screen. But before I do, I want a precursor to that. The art I'm going to put on now, I have labeled as not Daisy. When I was doing my research and pulling reference, I found a lot of art that was supposedly of Princess Daisy, but it didn't read Princess Daisy except for the costuming and accessories. And so I bring this up not to berate these artists. I think that they, you know, a lot of the art that I'm going to show you is well done. It's just that for me, at least, it does not read Princess Daisy because they've changed so much about the character that now it doesn't look like Princess Daisy anymore, except that they've put her in the typical costumes, or they've taken that costume away and then suddenly, again, it doesn't feel as much like Princess Daisy anymore. And we'll talk a little bit about why. So again, these are not bad. There's not bad art. It's just that we're looking at it to kind of go back and forth between what makes something one character and what makes something probably not that character anymore. So if we go up here to the top, we have this kind of sticker art of who we would probably read as Princess Daisy, especially because we're talking about her. However, if you were to remove the costuming, really nothing about this would scream Princess Daisy. You would probably not look at it and be like, oh yeah, that's Daisy from the Mario series, because they've not captured certain elements of Daisy that are instantly readable. But because we put the costume on, we can tell that it's Princess Daisy. This one was listed as Princess Daisy, but I don't know. I don't get anything Daisy about this. I mean, maybe it was just a princess whose name is Daisy, but again, this popped up as somebody doing fan art of Princess Daisy. I don't read this at all as Daisy, except for the outfit again. Over here, we have something that definitely reads as Daisy, but I feel like most of the reason that it reads that way is because of the accessorizing, not because of the character herself, not because of the choices that the artist made. Maybe, but it doesn't really read that. Here we have a character who is Princess Daisy only in name, in my opinion. Like it's got some of the accessorizing, but we've lost a lot of what makes Daisy that character. Here we have, I guess, Farmer Daisy, but again, we've gone so far away from the character design, the inherent elements, that we've lost a lot of the character other than the accessorizing. And then this one at the bottom, which I actually really love as a drawing and a character. But it's again, it feels like they dressed their own character up in the outfit that usually is Princess Daisy. So what is it that kind of differentiates the left and the right here? I think there are certain elements that we can pick out, and that's what I was kind of analyzing earlier today. And we're going to talk about that lends itself to that, in spite of the fact that the character costuming can change. So one thing, we'll start here with this official art because I think that this represents it really well. One thing that you'll note that is quintessential Daisy, other than the costuming, is that her proportions on the character's head are almost 50-50 hair and then face. So in official art and in almost all art that makes you feel like, yeah, that's Daisy, you're going to have this proportion ratio, and that ends up being a significant element because when you take that away, which we'll see on the other side of the screen here, it stops being as Daisy-esque as it was before. So immediately we can resolve one thing, that if you're going to do art and you want it to read Princess Daisy, these proportions are going to be important. Now, does that mean that you have to have them? No. If you're really good at what you do, you can pull it off without that. But if you want to set yourself up for success, this is a good way to start. Look at things like proportion between certain elements. And here what we see is that it's almost this like 50-50 thing. Her hair is really big at the top, and then her face tends to be towards the bottom. The other thing that we can look at that comes up again and again when we're talking about Princess Daisy is her eyes tend to be very large and expressive. They're almost always blue, at least in the official arts. And then she tends to have some pretty thick eyelashes, but very thin eyebrows. So this is something again and again that comes up in Daisy art, and that we can apply if we're going to try and do something based on a certain character. We can look at these specific details, and when those details appear, it's going to be, more readable as that particular character. Emulator says they look the same, but in a different character design. A little bit. You have to be careful about the use of the word character design, because it can mean style, right? Because everybody can have a different style, or it can mean legitimate character design. And when it's some different character design, that's when we start to move away from who the character is. And so you almost have character design, right? And then you have style. And you can have one character design that goes across multiple styles. But if you change that character design itself, that's what we're talking about. Then it ceases to be that character in a sense. So the other thing that typically is going to read Princess Daisy are these big puffs of hair. She tends to have these two puffs of hair and then kind of a little mini tuft in the bottom middle. Her hair is parted in the center. That's a really big part. If you are looking at character design, anytime there's a hair element, look at where it's parted, because if it's parted on the right or the left or the center, that's going to make a big difference. We tend to read things as silhouettes, right? That's why silhouette is so important. So the silhouette of those shapes is instantly recognizable as Princess Daisy. Now, if we move over to this one, you'll see that we still have kind of those puffs, right? And the two in the center, but they're not quite as pronounced because they're kind of flopping down instead of puffed up like in this other one over here. So that's something interesting. That's an artistic design choice that the artist made, a style choice. But because we still have so many other elements of the Daisy character design, it's okay because he's changed something, or this artist has changed something slightly, but it doesn't mean that it's dramatic enough to totally change the character. But again, we can see we've got this sort of half hair and then half face thing going on, right? Those proportions are still there. And even though the style is very different from the other ones, we still have elements that read as Princess Daisy. And we have the blue eyes, we have the thick lashes, we have thinner eyebrows, we have the small nose. That's almost always in the Princess Daisy art is a small. This one doesn't even have noses, but that's just different elements. So again, we can move on. Here we have again these big shapes. The two in the middle. We have this ratio of half and half. It almost looks like Toad. So we have all these different elements again that read as Princess Daisy. This one we're pushing things a little bit more because the hair is starting to get higher and the face is starting to get larger. So this is still reading Daisy, but it's reading less Daisy as the other one, strictly in terms of the head. But we have those big elements. We have the two little parts and it goes in the middle. So got that. Again, this one is stylistically pretty different than the others, but it still reads as her because of the big puff on the hair. Obviously the costuming and stuff, but we got those big expressive eyes, things like that. Hailey says it's also the expression. Agreed. That was another thing that I kept coming across over and over again. The thing that really reads as Daisy is this expressive, like excited kind of expression. Not always. There've been plenty. Actually, this one up here is a good example. It still reads as Daisy, but it doesn't have that particular expression. But the eyes are still wide, and it still reads as her. But she definitely tends to have this kind of more intense look. Emulator asks, does style affect the character? So do you mean does style affect the character design, or do you mean does style affect the character themselves? That would be probably a follow-up. In terms of both, style can affect the character if you're not careful, because if you have a particular style, for example, this style up here of the Strikers art, it's very intense and rough. Whereas even the one right next to it, this style is more subdued and feminine. Because of that, the character themselves is going to feel different. The character on the left here, the Daisy kicking a soccer ball, is going to feel edgier and more intense. And the Daisy on the right is the one where the game is over. Now she's relaxing because she's tired. Whatever the case might be, it's definitely going to lend itself to a different feel of the character. But you can still have a character feel a certain way in any style, really. You just have to adjust accordingly. Obviously, I shouldn't say obviously. The reason that the artist on the left here decided to use that edgier style, other than it being the style for the promo for the art of that game, is so that it lended itself to energy and dynamism. And so that style really speaks to that. And on the right, this Daisy is again much more subdued, much more relaxed. So style can affect the character itself. Now, in terms of character design, the only time style really affects character design is if you're intentionally doing something for that reason. So, for example, if you designed a character with very graphic shapes, right, because that was your style, then that character design may be pretty heavy in terms of graphic shapes. But if someone was a very good artist, they could technically take all the design elements, right? The proportions, not necessarily even colors, but to a degree, the colors, the feel that you're going with, and they could use a totally different style and still draw that same character. And you would read it as that character because they did a good job at taking the design elements. So style and design, we kind of have to separate a little bit. because the design is like the building blocks, and the style is almost the, I don't want to just use color. It's like the material of the building blocks. Um, you can change the material that the building blocks are, and you would have the same design, right? But if you changed the building blocks themselves, then you're talking about changing the character design rather than just the style. Style is almost a little bit more window dressing to a degree. Anyway, so we have those elements that are quintessential Daisy. This one I think is one of my favorites that I've found. It's just a lovely Princess Daisy. It's got her charm, it's got her expression, it's got her costuming, obviously. But I feel like if you took this head and hair and everything, you took off the crown, you took off even the earrings and the outfit, and you changed it into something completely different costuming, you would still read this as Princess Daisy, because the artist has done a fantastic job capturing those quintessential character design elements, and then put it into this particular style. I also like the style, so it works out really well. Meanwhile, let's go over here for a second. So we just talked about kind of the things that make Daisy read as Daisy, other than the costuming. So if we look at some of the other side of things, this design has hair kind of up here, and then we have a pretty long face. So initially our proportions are kind of shot. And so again, we're not going to read it as much as Daisy because that character design element is so vastly different. It doesn't mean you couldn't draw her in this style, but you would need to redo some of the elements. Likewise, we have the big hair tuft here. And so that's a Daisy-esque thing, but because it's from the side and we don't get the part in the middle or anything, it's not reading quite the same way. And so if we were going to redo this, what we would want to do is, first of all, fix proportions, because we would need to make the face smaller and the hair larger. And we'd also probably want to puff this hair up more so that it reads as side of Daisy face, right? That would really help this whole piece. Now, again, I like it as art. It just, to me, it doesn't read Princess Daisy unless you add in the costume stuff. And then you can tell what it is just because of that and not because of the design. I feel bad because I feel like this one isn't meant to be Princess Daisy, but maybe, I mean, it's got the earrings, so maybe it is. I don't know. I understand. So this artist clearly went for a completely different style choice, and that's fine. It works, and maybe they just wanted to do something different. But to me, this doesn't speak to the character anymore. Now we've just taken the costuming and the idea, and this doesn't say anything about Princess Daisy to me, because it's just changed so much. Especially, I mean, look at the proportions on the face and hair. This is extremely non-Daisy-esque, right? Because they've changed the proportions so dramatically. And then the same thing sort of with the hair issue. Like we've turned the hair into this really nice curly waviness, and that's pleasant, but it's not Daisy anymore. We've lost the element that makes it Daisy. And so we have to at least be aware of that. If you want to do it, if you want to change things dramatically, go for it. I'm not saying don't. But if you're looking to do art of a certain character, whether you're in production or not, right? Because if you're doing a production, you need the character to look like the character, even if the styling's slightly different and you need to fix that, or somebody else usually fixes that. You need the character's proportions to be the right proportions, especially in animation where things have to be consistent. So this is a really good lesson of things like consistency. This is important stuff to pay attention to. All right, so this one, we've gotten the proportions pretty spot on here. I think the thing that is challenging with this one is that the eyes have become far less expressive. We've increased the pupils significantly and decreased the size of the blue around them. We've made the mouth kind of pursed lips and larger around the sides. That's not typically a Daisy thing. This still is closer to Daisy than I think some of the others, but it's just one of those things, whoops, that you want to make sure that you keep in mind. Again, when you're doing these things, keep them in mind so that you can just keep things consistent. I got a comment. TMKOC Fan Studio says, on making characters, how to decide the length of arms and legs, please reply. Okay, so when you're doing your character design, typically your arm length is going to be from the fingers. When your character has their arms hanging down at their side, their fingers are typically going to be somewhere around the thigh, mid-thigh. And that will kind of determine the arm length for you, because the elbow, the distance between the elbow and the shoulder is almost equal to that of the rest of the arm. So it breaks up nicely in terms of proportions. You can change that. Like, I have very lanky proportions because I'm a freak, but you generally have that to go by. Now, in terms of leg length, that can change dramatically depending on the type of character you're doing. You know, some characters have very short little legs. Some have very long legs. If you're trying for like more model-esque, you want to increase the length of the legs, typically, things like that. And so that you're going to have a little more wiggle room and a little more choice to make, artistically speaking. In terms of how to decide that, that's your job as your artist. You are the artist, so you get to decide how long you would like things. Generally speaking, you can push things too far, so you can keep pushing things and see how it goes. Eventually, it will break, but it's kind of just a design choice for you. You know, I did a live stream many months ago now on character proportion. You can look up that one. It talked about kind of when I'm drawing a specifically female character, there are certain proportions that I like to use, and I stick with those typically, and then I'll you know, play around with it from there. But once you find that proportion that you like, you can kind of use that as a jumping off point, at least. So I hope that helps. Continuing along, so here we got this one again. We have our face proportion is not Princess Daisy, because we've got the small hair and then the really large face. The eyes are very expressive. That's good, but this doesn't really read as Princess Daisy anymore. We've kind of got those hair elements, which is, you know, good that we have those. It's not quite reading as Daisy as much as it could if we tweak some things, if we push some stuff around. Again, if we can get the hair down here a little bit more, and we get the face to be kind of that equal shape down here, we're gonna read more as Daisy, typically. I apologize if it's loud in the background. I'm not sure if the mic is picking that up. Somebody is mowing the lawn next door. And then over here again, I think one of the key elements as to why this does not read as Daisy, well, there's two. First, we've destroyed the hair element. This has got bangs now instead of the double tuft. We almost have the double tuft, but it's not. It's kind of broken a little bit in that regard. And then the second thing is just that the nose is really elongated and the face is really large. So we're losing, again, that Daisy element that's in the original character design. And again, the style choices are nice. I like the character and everything, but it only reads as Daisy because of some costuming that is on there. Otherwise, nothing about that says Daisy. And then again, this last one, we've kind of a little bit abandoned the hair thing. The part of the hair is all the way up here. We could say that it goes down to here, but there's just a lot more face than there is hair ratio. We've got the tuft a little bit, but not much. So we've lost that element a little bit. And then again, we have the nice expressive eyes. These are definitely Daisy eyes. And so they've nailed that, which is really good. But the nose doesn't read as a Daisy nose, and the mouth is not a Daisy mouth. it doesn't mean that you can't do that. But once again, if we removed the costuming, are you going to know that that's Princess Daisy? And my response would be no, I'd have no idea that that's Daisy because it doesn't have enough elements to kind of read that way. So that's turn some things off. That's kind of what I wanted to chat about today. I pulled this image. It's small and ugly, but I thought it was interesting because this is kind of the evolution of the official Daisy, official art from the beginning straight through to where we are now in Smash Brothers. There might even be a newer, technically, Daisy art because of Mario Kart Tour. But these are just some examples. And what unifies them is what makes that character, right? And so that's one of the things that we can study. And it's nice when it's a character like Mario that has the very distinct mustache, right? And the very distinct eyes. We know Mario based on so many particular elements. And boy, if you could do him in any style and you would tell that it's Mario. Daisy's a lot harder. And some characters are going to be harder. So that's just something you want to keep in mind when you're either doing fan art or when you're working on a production. You need to find those elements that really read that character, and then you can kind of go from there. So all that being said, I'm going to take my Daisy art to its next step, which is a tie-down drawing. I don't think I'll do that on a live stream, but I'll try and remember to show it off for you guys if you want to see the final piece at the end. This still needs some tweaking. I could use some of the things that I picked out. I think I want to tweak some of the proportions a little bit, but I'm hopeful that even if you removed all the Daisy-esque elements of the costuming, you would still read Daisy in the proportions and things that we've got going on there. I think that it would probably still read. I'm not sure. Maybe it could still be better, but so could every art, so that's fine. I'm pretty pleased with it. I'm going to take it to a tie-down drawing, and then I'm going to do the inking. I might try some new things in terms of inking. I'm going to experiment a little bit with this piece. If you've been on some of the previous live streams recently, you'll know that I've been suggesting, because I recently found out this great thing where you do experimental pieces, and it's a way to kind of like how do I put it? Revitalize a little bit of your creativity, because we can get into a habit of just doing things in our own style, in our own ways, and art can become tedious at times. If you ever experience an art block, this is a great way out of it. Do little experiments that you, even if you never show another human being, but try some stuff that you wouldn't normally do. Just try little pieces that you can do pretty quickly. You know, it shouldn't take more than a couple hours from start to finish, and try some things. Just do stuff you wouldn't normally do. And it's okay if you don't like it at the end. You're going to pull yourself up and out of any sort of funk you might get into otherwise, because the more we do one thing, the better we get at that thing, which is great, but the less new stuff comes in that we can use to evolve as artists. So I definitely recommend that you try out a few little experimental pieces. It goes for animation too. If you're struggling with your animation, or with just feeling like you're in a rut, or whatever the case might be, try some very short little things that are very different than what you would do. If you do reserved animation, that's very structured, do some crazy, wacky, hugely squash and stretch stuff. If you do particle effects and explosions and stuff, do some very subtle character animation that's very rich in terms of subtlety and detail, because these little experiments will really help you grow as an artist, and it'll keep you interested too, because sometimes we get tired. Okay, that's what I want to talk about today. I hope that it was useful and you enjoyed it. That's kind of a shorter one for me today. I'm still recovering. I have some new medicine, which I'm hopeful is going to relieve some pain, and get me to the 31st when I have an upcoming doctor's appointment, and we'll see what to do from there. But I'm gonna go get some ice, and then I'll catch you guys next time. I don't know when the next live stream for me will be. Ferdinand's been doing some, and if you missed the recent YouTube shorts, he's been doing a bunch of new YouTube shorts for Animator Island. So go check those out. They're obviously short, so you can catch them quick. And then I would be remiss if I didn't mention that you can always head over to patreon.com/Animator Island if you're looking for things like one-on-one mentoring or group mentoring and things like that. Really good resource available to you. So, okay. Have a good one, everybody, and we'll catch you next time. Bye.